Great, thank you. If there's anyone out in the hall, this would be the appropriate time to come join. Welcome everyone to scenic Cambridge, Massachusetts. The first time we've had a meeting here at the Microsoft Nerd Center, so thank you. Great turnout tonight. My name is Melissa Mio, and I am the president-elect of New England HIMSS. I would love to take a moment to introduce my other board members that serve New England HIMSS. We have past president Mary Maloney right here. Scott Bradley, where are you? I saw you. He's our current president. There we go. Matt Bornstein, who's in charge of our communications. And Pat Ryu, who's in charge of our sponsorship. So if you are looking to sponsor New England HIMSS, she would be the lady you'd want to talk to tonight. A little plug for New England HIMSS. And we also have Jeanette Fior, who is our programs committee chair. Where is she? There she is, back there. Make sure I get everyone else. We also have Tim Wong, our secretary. Jessica Doherty, you want to stand up? And Jessica is our membership chair, so if you are not a member of National HIMSS or New England HIMSS, she would be the lady you want to talk to tonight. We also have Craig Schneider, longtime member, there we go. And did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone that's on the board. And then we're going to just mention some committee members that we can't do this without them. So the sponsorship committee, we've got Jay Krasner, John MacArthur, Amy Jennings, and Michael Canarellis. Thank you for everything you do. And our programs team, we've got Sheila O'Connor, Jennifer Robinson, and Monique Chevalets. And communications, the people who do Twitter and things like that, you know, for those of you who are very savvy. Twitter. Curly Henry is here too. And if you're on Twitter, you know Janice and you know Pat. So a lot of fellow Twitter friends. You know, I think it would be really appropriate tonight as we introduce us to talk about the New England HIMSS mission. Sometimes it gets lost when we're doing events like this, but it's really to promote and foster in our region active involvement, and our vision really is for the betterment of health through information technology, which is really appropriate for tonight. So our mission is to foster professional growth, relationships, knowledge, and collaboration among healthcare information management professionals in New England. So if you're here tonight, instead of sitting with your friends, just maybe you want to venture out and meet somebody new. Might be nice to network, so if you can do that tonight, it would be great. So before I get into introducing our wonderful speaker tonight, which you're all excited to be here for, I have some upcoming events to let you know about. So for those of you who go to Connecticut or would like to have friends in Connecticut that would like to go to this meeting coming up next week, we've got April 5th. We have an educational social from 6 to 8:30. Check our website for that information. We have a CIO, Kim Kalajanian, speaking there. In Rhode Island, we have the State Health IT Day. That's April 14th from 1 to 4 p.m. And then we have our spring conference, New England HIMSS Spring Conference, which is May 12th. So check the website and make sure you sign up if you're interested in going to any of those other events. Jennifer Robinson would like to let you know to make sure you complete the survey that's going to be sent out, because we want to give you the best of New England HIMSS. So your feedback is really welcome and really appreciated and helpful. We also are going to be doing some more LinkedIn things that are going to be coming out on LinkedIn. I'll leave it at that. So I guess we're going to be utilizing LinkedIn a little bit more, so look out for that as well. Connect with us there. So with that said, I'm going to introduce ePatient Dave, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of his background. I'm going to turn, and before I do this, turn phones off because mine's already going. So if those of you can mute your phones, that would be great. Oh, did you? I'm just joking. Okay, I'm just trying to pull up his bio.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, so we're really privileged to have ePatient Dave here. He's really been through this remarkable journey. Richard Davis de Bronkart Jr., widely known as ePatient Dave. He was on a quest for patient engagement, and it gets very real and radical and very entertaining when he takes the stage. So I'll let him kind of talk a little bit more about that. But a year ago, Dave transitioned involuntarily into the world of chronic conditions, where he was diagnosed as a pre-diabetic. Where self-tracking is essential, his hospital offers open notes so he could see their data. But his doctors have no way of viewing his data from his apps and trackers. In this way, he's on his own. So his latest message to the healthcare establishment is failure to share data both ways makes medicine fall short. So let's welcome Dave to tell us how we can improve this and make it better.
Well, thanks for coming out. I see a lot of familiar faces, and for you, I'll say there's a lot of new information, because things keep changing in this industry. Who knew, And for those of you who are new, I'll give you some background on how this all happened. The short version of how I fell in, it really is like, and by the way, you who are behind the pillars, it's perfectly okay if you move. I mean, you can stand along the wall, there are seats up here. It drives me nuts when a room is laid out with a view blocker. It's like a bad seat at the garden, It really is obstructed view. So, people ask, how can you tell if somebody's empowered? A powerless person says, well, there's nothing I can do, I'm stuck here. Right? And a person who is empowered says, I'm in trouble here, what can I do? It's part of my story. So do what you want, don't worry about feeling conspicuous. Anyway, 9 years ago, I almost died. I found out I was almost dead, and I didn't. I was diagnosed in January, and my treatment ended in July. I was like, woohoo, the video game of life was saying game over. Instead, it said free replay. And in 2008, I started learning about healthcare, which had saved my life. And in 2009, I wrote a blog post about garbage in my medical record, and 3 days later, the Boston Globe called and said, we think this is important. It was like a Disney movie. Like blogger in Nashua, New Hampshire, type, 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 newspaper calls, they put it on the front page, newspaper comes spinning out of the screen. And then people started inviting me to Washington to policy meetings. True story. Crazy stuff. And then they started asking me to give speeches, and that's how I got here. It's been 450 events in 15 countries in the last 6 years. Crazy stuff. And it raises the question, what the heck is going on here? Because I am no data scientist. I'm a 2-bit data user in my jobs in industry where I worked in sales and marketing. I understand that data has to be good quality, and it has to be combined and analyzed and move around in ways that are effective and accurate and so on, which to a very large extent does not happen yet in health IT, despite a tremendous amount of spending. Now, I don't indict the state of the industry. I do encourage people in this business and people entering this business to have their eyes wide open about current reality and think about what can we do going forward so that 5 years from now things are better than they are now. One of my current crusades is this, as you heard, the title we chose for tonight's talk. This is about data mobility. All right, and it's a different aspect than I usually talk about. I want to mention that as a marketing guy, I understand the power of a consistent brand. So after I survived, I started a blog called The New Life of Patient Dave. And then through the connection I have with my primary physician here, Dr. Danny Sands. Dr. Sands, raise your hand or stand up or something. As you will hear, some of this guy's connections and his leading thinking are truly identifiably part of the reason I'm alive today, so I like how he thinks. And anyway, a year after my diagnosis, he said, hey Dave, you might want to come on this retreat with this ePatient gang. And I learned that ePatient means empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled. And I changed my blogger name to ePatient Dave. It was not going to be a thing. It was just going to be like Cowboy Bob, my internet nickname, Jim in Nashua, whatever. Well, when Twitter came along, that's my Twitter handle. On Facebook, I'm ePatient Dave. On LinkedIn, I'm ePatient Dave. Curing cancer is difficult. A consistent brand is not. Okay, so if you want to have a consistent presence on social media or anywhere else, guess what my website is? ePatientDave.com. Very good. And if you need to know my Skype ID, ask your marketing people. Anyway. In 2013, I saw that a lot of people in healthcare were beginning to talk about patient engagement. In fact, the Policy Journal Health Affairs, February 2013, had an entire theme issue, New Era of Patient Engagement, and it was very obvious to me that it was all written by people whose lives were pretty much not at stake in the conduct of healthcare. In fact, the opening editorial didn't even mention the fact that the articles in that journal all had different implied definitions of patient engagement that were different. This is the sign of an immature field that has not yet gotten its act together and become a science. All right, so you'll hear people talking about patient engagement, and if you combine everything people say, it'll be mush-mouthed and inconsistent. Well, so I decided that I was going to take my talking points, because as it happens, I think I'm right. And I took my talking points and made a little book called Let Patients Help, which if you've seen my TED Talk, you know that's the chant at the end of the TED Talk. I mean, how many books have a TED Talk about them? Well, I did it in the opposite sequence. I also saw that since what I wanted to talk about was what we call participatory medicine, doctor-patient collaboration, that I needed to have some stuff in there from Dr. Sands. And in fact, we chose a photo that had been taken for publicity purposes. Notice in that photo, well, we'll get to that later. Anyway, that book is on Amazon. It's $10. It takes an hour to read. It's it's short intentionally, and it's also short because it matches my attention span. I tried to write a longer book, but that's just not what I do. Anyway, there's our Society for Participatory Medicine. Those of us who are members, where are the members? Raise your hands, please. A bunch of us here, all at the front, you'll see highly engaged people, right? Well, there's brochures on the membership table out there. It's cheap to join, and we're getting really active this year. We were sort of a sleeper cell for about 6 years, and now things are happening. It's really great. What happens when a marketer experiences healthcare as a dying person? I worked in business all my life. I was a high-tech marketer, actually, specifically graphic arts, and specifically typesetting machines. Now, if you want to talk about an industry that changed, all right, people talk about disruptive innovation. Most people have not been under that steamroller. I was under that steamroller. Disruptive innovation happens, one of the components is that a core asset of a field breaks loose and becomes available to the people who have the need in the first place. Now in healthcare, obviously, the person who has the need is the patient. In typesetting, the person who has the need is whoever wants to get the brochure or book or whatever, or newspaper printed. And one of those core assets was fonts. Right? Now, when desktop publishing came along, the same week that my daughter was born, in January of 1984, when the Mac was introduced, all of a sudden, y'all got fonts. And you know what? You were stupid in your use of fonts in the early days. The Jack Nicholson movie had not come out yet, but in hindsight, what we would have said is, you can't handle the Helvetica! I mean, you didn't know what you were doing. And this is exactly what people say today about patients getting their hands on health data, whether it's from the EMR or from devices or whatever. Well, you know what? It turns out, and the first time I testified in Washington, it was amazing. Out of this whole Boston Globe front page thing, I ended up sitting in front of a movie-style horseshoe-shaped table of microphones. I literally said, it's in the record, I feel a little bit like Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde. You know, I'm not sure how I got here, but I don't have a chihuahua in my pocket. I said it. Well, Lord, how did we get here? Squirrel? Here's what happens. It all becomes very real, especially this question. Who gets to say what value is? There are an awful lot of people in Washington and everywhere else talking about value-based care. Sometimes, but too rarely, they ask the person who has the problem in the first place. Now, the person who started using fonts Initially, we had this thing people did called ransom note typesetting. They would use every font in the computer on every page just because they could. Well, over time, clueless, inexperienced people got experienced. But the other dynamic that happened when the data gets loose, when the core asset gets loose, is the app developers start optimizing for the new user. And that's what we're starting to see in health data, is as the data gets loose. Now, clearly, I mean, I swear, we in the typesetting industry did not make it easy for people to get their job data out of our computers because we knew what was happening. But over time, a pool of data grew up outside our walls, and from that point on, we were screwed because we had no ability to control them. And this ties in. You may know that ONC, the National Coordinator for Health IT, sent a report to Congress last year saying a lot of hospitals and a lot of vendors, what the words they used were knowingly interfering with the flow of patient information. That, to me, nothing to me could be more corrupt in health IT than preventing a family's data from getting to where it needs to be for better care. Well, I confess it, I'm a data geek. This is from the Science Museum in Hartford, where I gave a talk a few years ago. Come to the dork side, we have pie. They have these shirts, and another talk from, this is Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man 2, which was filmed actually at SAS headquarters in North Carolina, and I gave a talk in that building one day, and I said, well, you know, there's another scene that I think is culturally important for people to understand from that movie. It's when he's in the casino, and his ring there is a brass rat. And I have one too. I have to say I barely graduated. I'm not nearly as smart as this suggests, but I did. In fact, the CEO of my hospital, who was Paul Levy at the time, said that he lived down the hall from me in the dorm in an amazing coincidence. We double dated when we were 19. And he said the way that I managed to graduate by dodging all kinds of bullets in an amazing escape turned out to be useful later when I got cancer, because that's pretty much how I did that also. There's another movie reference to this ring, by the way, that a lot of people aren't aware of from Lord of the Rings. It turns out the one ring to rule them all is also a brass rat. So, Dr. Sands lets me use some of his slides, and you will see that his style of his slides is significantly different from mine. He quotes Francis Bacon. See, he's evidence-based. I'm a radical marketing guy. So he says, he quotes authority. You know, I quote my head. Knowledge is power. Another way to look at this, that is the line from the book. See, as a marketing guy, I like to take complex ideas and distill them down to punchy slogans. It's even better if they rhyme, like, people perform better when they're informed better. Right? And the corollary to that, by the way, is that it's kind of perverse to keep people away from their information and then say, look, these people don't know anything. You know, give us the data, the same as you got fonts and you got better at it, right? Give us the data and let us move in the direction we want to move. In fact, this is not just me, this is Todd Park, who right now reports to Obama, Chief Technical Officer, or he did, I don't think he does anymore. Anyway, he was at HHS when he said, data liberation on stage. That's my appeal. Tom Ferguson died 10 years ago next month. He was the founder of the ePatient movement. He was a visionary. Back in the 80s, he was the medical editor of the Whole Earth catalog, the hippie self-sufficiency journal. He published a magazine called Medical Self-Care, and then he made a book that was a compilation, a sort of a best of, called Medical Self-Care. He knew that the vast majority of what we do is take care of ourselves at home. But he also knew that when trouble hits, like the stage 4 kidney cancer that hit me, a major limiting factor on how much we could contribute was access to information. And when the internet came along, he saw that that altered what was possible. Now notice my wording. It did not make us geniuses. It meant that humanity had access to information. It made new things possible. It is up to us to figure out how to make something out of that. Well, he started spotting people who were doing various things. On the far left is a guy named Gilles Friedman, who had started the first network of cancer patient listservs back in the 90s when his wife had metastatic breast cancer. Directly over Tom's elbow in the middle is Dr. Danny Sands, who he identified because Danny was the first person to co-author a paper, peer-reviewed journal article, on how to do doctor-patient email without ruining the doctor's life. And that was in 1998. So if your doctor right now will not do email with you, your doctor may be a little bit behind the times. Well, seriously, we will discuss later how being behind the times, the dissemination delay of new knowledge holds medicine back from achieving what it could. He coined this term, equipped, engaged, empowered, enabled. And in 2009, this gang of rowdies decided the time had come to form a society, so they did, the Society for Participatory Medicine. This, as I said, is a publicity photo, but notice the triangle arrangement there. These days, because, you can say it after me, usability sucks. Well, you don't have to, but everybody's saying it. The people are complaining that their doctor isn't looking at them, the doctor's looking at the computer. And doctors are saying, I don't get to look at the patient, I have to look at the computer. Dr. Sands has always done it this way. His view is that the medical record is a shared working document because the plan is all about me. Right? And now with this open notes approach that a lot of people, including our hospital, Beth Israel Deaconess, is doing, I can look at the chart when I'm at home and look up what we discussed, and son of a gun, it turns out patients do better when they can look it up. Who knew? Well, we perform better when we're informed better. Knowledge is power, right? So, this is from the homepage of our Society for Participatory Medicine. We have 4 things we do. CARE, community, advocacy, research, education. And in particular, community is the most fun. I'm going to give a short version of my cancer story. I went in for a routine physical, and as part of that, I got a shoulder x-ray. And this is one of these moments, if you've ever had something like this happen in your family, you'll know what I mean. This moment is frozen in multisensory memory. It was 9 a.m. exactly, January 3rd, 2007. I'd had the x-ray the day before. I remember what my desk phone looked like on my desk at work in Burlington, Massachusetts. I remember what the LED time signal said on the phone, 9:00. The phone rang and it was Dr. Sands, and he said, Dave, the radiologist called me, and I called up your image on my screen at home, and I'm thinking, can I see? Well, we didn't do screen sharing in those days, so I couldn't. That's an indication of how the world is already changing. He said, Dave, your shoulder's going to be fine. I just had a stiff shoulder. No big deal. This is total dumb luck. That's why they call it an incidental finding. He said, there's something in your lung that shouldn't be there. And he said, we don't know what it is. It could be a scar from some old infection. It could be a fungal thing, but we need to find out. And he said, I've ordered a CAT scan. Call this number and make an appointment. Well, to make a long story short, a long and frightening story, it turns out that was one of 5 metastases in both lungs, 5 tumors. And so now we knew it was cancer, and lung cancer doesn't look like this. So we knew it was something that had spread from somewhere else. And that raises, at the top of the screen, raises the question, where's this from? Which conveniently enough abbreviates to WTF, which is pretty much how I felt at that moment. Well, my wife came with me for an abdominal ultrasound. Dr. Sands said something like this usually starts in an abdominal organ, and a piece breaks off and circulates, and it gets stuck in some tight place, which often is the lung, right? My wife's a veterinarian. She knows I'm not a dog, but she's seen lots of ultrasounds. So when we saw the big mass in the kidney, this is from a later MRI. Yes, I have all my radiology images in my Mac. I use the Osirix open source viewer to look at them. To some extent, I don't know what I'm doing, and to some extent, I do, and it's my freaking data. I don't care whether I know what I'm doing. You know what? You know what? I don't have a picture of it, but I got my tumors 3D printed last year. And in fact, another thing I did was I found a kiosk at the mall at Christmas a couple of years ago where it said 3D print yourself. I went and got myself 3D printed. Permettez-moi de vous présenter le mini-me. And let me just say, so marketing guy thinks, what's the market for this going to be? Probably not this so much. But have you ever seen how people do this more with little girls than with little boys? But that, like, for every birthday, you have the 1-year-old, the 2-year-old, you line them up on the mantelpiece. When this is the, what I wouldn't pay, sorry, to have a statue of my daughter when she was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. People are doing this as cake toppers now for their weddings. That's a little weird. I don't know that I would do that, but that's the whole point. Once the data gets loose, who knows what people are going to do with it? Well, once we knew it was the kidney, almost certainly, now a key point here. Some people say, Dave, nobody I know is like you. That's fine with me. People are different. There's this concept of patient-centered care. Patient-centered care is different for different people. To some people, being taken care of is, let me understand everything I can. I just want to understand. To other people, it's, I don't want to know a thing. Just do what you need to do. That's fine. My point is not that people should be like me. My point is when somebody wants to be involved, wants to be engaged with their case, can we please find a way? And access to their data can be a huge factor. Well, we Googled, and I found my wife on the internet in 1999 on Match.com. I was one of their early success stories, but before I found Ginny, I went through some suboptimal search results. And if you've ever been on eHarmony, you know what I mean. But I didn't marry the first one I found, right? Same as with fonts. People are clueless when they start out, and they wise up over time. Some of them stay stupid forever, you know? Anyway, here's what I wanted to know as much as I could. What did I find on WebMD? The prognosis for any renal cell cancer patient with progressing disease, that's metastases, is poor. Almost all patients with stage 4 renal cell cancer are incurable. And that is a heck of a thing to read when you don't feel sick. Now, mind you, I was about to feel sick. That's why that stupid lucky shoulder x-ray was one factor of how I saved my life. Here's a diagram of stage 4 renal cell carcinoma from the website of the drug that I eventually got. Now, the numbered lesions are all ones that actually were in my body, and the other speckles that I added there are additions, but I was a poster child. You know, that one in the skull, that shows a brain metastasis. Mine was at the back of my cranium. I still have a moth-eaten area in that bone. And look at the head. I even had one a few weeks before my treatment started. A tumor erupted out of my mouth. I had a pea-sized tumor of kidney cancer on my tongue. And here's the patient reality, okay? I'm happy to say that it had no taste. But you know, the other thing is that only the most aggressive tumors grow in muscle tissue, which the tongue is. So I was seriously sick. My oncologist correctly would not give me a diagnosis, or a prognosis, excuse me, because he said there isn't enough good data about people like you. I was hungry for more information. I hunted, and I finally found an old paper that said, when I scored my disease, that for somebody in my condition, median survival was 24 weeks. That was in January of 2007. Obviously that didn't, well actually, you can't say that didn't happen. 24 weeks didn't happen, but median, you know, the median is not the message, as Stephen Jay Gould said. I knew enough from statistics from college to know that, but that was an indication of how sick I was. Right? And that was sobering. I woke up at 1 o'clock that morning thinking, what am I doing sleeping? You know, 24 weeks from now would be June 25th. And I actually said, I kept a cancer journal on caringbridge.org. said that would be June 25th. So if I beat that, I've outdone the median. I pictured my mother's face at my funeral. That's how real it was. My dad's funeral had been a year and a half earlier. And the hardest thing was sitting down with that daughter that I mentioned who'd just gotten out of college and saying, this doesn't look good. It's a hard conversation to have. And I said, you know, her boyfriend was with her. I said, we're going to deal with this. So, and we have the kind of relationship where I could say bluntly, don't do anything impulsive. Don't go off and get married prematurely just so you can do it while dad's still alive. We're going to work on